Hi, I'm Judge Jimmy Lynn. I'm a judge in Philadelphia, but we're here today to honor Jon Cavaiani. Jon Cavaiani, Medal of Honor recipient, who just passed away 2 days ago, 29th of July. John and I became friends through a man we call Daddy Wags, Jimmy Wagner, who was responsible for organizing a bunch of former Marines and military people and law enforcement people into an organization, a local organization called the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation, which was a bigger part of the national organization. But Daddy Wags was the one who first introduced me to John. They were very good friends, and that was back in 1995. And John and I have been friends off and on. John would be coming into Philadelphia, and we'd see him at different places in Philadelphia, and he came to my wedding, which was a really wonderful thing. We just became friends through this. It's a charitable organization. We raise money for the children of the Marines and Navy corpsmen and federal law enforcement that don't come back from the war. They have scholarships for their children. John was very generous with his time, and so he was always in Philadelphia. In fact, he'll be buried. His funeral will be, although he's a Californian, he'll be buried at Philadelphia, and then the actual burial will be in Arlington. But that's how much he loved Philadelphia and the group I'm associated with, the Marine Corps Law Enforcement Foundation. So that's how I got to know him. Him and his wife Barb, who stood by him all this time. Really wonderful lady, and that's how I became involved with John. I simply asked the students to do a half flag, half mast, and Arcade to expound on that a little bit. And, Steve, we're very grateful. We're very gracious in doing that. I also want to thank Steve Wagner, the director of Black Bear Spelling, who has fully supported this idea. Thank you very much, Steve. He's the head coach of Rutgers University crew. None of you all who have helped here today know Jon Cavaiani, but you recognize the patriotic importance of recognizing our nation's heroes, and I want to thank you for that. Jon Cavaiani was born in Ireland. He was adopted by Italians who lived in England. So if you look him up, it'll say he was from England, but John was born in Ireland, and so he was very proud to be Irish as well. I'm going to read a citation which will tell his story of why he received the Medal of Honor. And by the way, the Medal of Honor is a person who has it doesn't win it; they receive it, and they call themselves recipients because they don't like to hear the word win, because they weren't trying to win anything. And the other thing, these men, they've all been, well, no, I think there is one woman from the Civil War. These men and women will say is that they are not heroes. It's the heroes are those who didn't come home. They're the ones that they feel very deeply in their heart about every day of their life. And some of them, I'll tell you this, that on the day of action, which is, in this case would be June 4th, 5th, 1971, they want to be by themselves. I know several of these men, been lucky enough to be friends with several of them as well, and they'll tell you that. They just want to be alone with their thoughts, I guess. So this is Jon Cavaiani was a staff sergeant at the time, became sergeant major of the United States Army. He was in Special Forces, 5th Special Forces. He was assigned as an advisor in Vietnam. It was called the Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observation Group, MACVSOG is called it. And what he was doing, he was a doc, and he was taking care of South Vietnamese people, medically. And the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese, well, they didn't appreciate that. And this is what happened on June 4th and June 5th, 1971. Sergeant Staff Sergeant Cavaiani distinguished himself by conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity. At the risk of life, above and beyond the call of duty, in action in the Republic of Vietnam on 4 and 5 June 1971, while serving as a platoon leader to a security platoon providing security for an isolated radio relay site located within enemy-held territory. On the morning of 4 June 1971, the entire camp came upon an intense barrage of enemy small arms, automatic weapons, rocket-propelled grenade, and mortar fire from a superior-sized enemy force. Staff Sergeant Cavaiani acted with complete disregard for his personal safety as he repeatedly exposed himself to heavy enemy fire in order to move about the company's perimeter, directing the platoon's fire and rallying the platoon in a desperate fight for survival. Staff Sergeant Cavaiani also returned heavy suppressive fire upon the assaulting enemy force during this period with a variety of weapons. As John said, whatever I could find, I picked up and used. When the entire platoon was to be evacuated, Staff Sergeant Cavaiani unhesitatingly volunteered to remain on the ground and direct the helicopters into the landing zone. Staff Sergeant Cavaiani was able to direct the first 3 helicopters in evacuating a major portion of the platoon, some 81 people. Due to intense increase in enemy fire, Staff Sergeant Cavaiani was forced to remain at the camp overnight, where he calmly directed the remaining platoon members in strengthening their defenses. On the morning of 5 June, a heavy ground fog restricted visibility. The superior-sized enemy force launched a major ground attack in an attempt to completely annihilate the remaining small force. The enemy force advanced in 2 ranks, first firing a heavy volume of small arms, automatic weapons, and rocket-propelled grenade fire, while the second rank continuously threw a steady barrage of hand grenades at the beleaguered force. Staff Sergeant Cavaiani returned a heavy barrage of small arms and hand grenade fire on the assaulting enemy force, but was unable to slow them down. He ordered the remaining platoon members to attempt to escape while he provided them with cover fire. With one last courageous exertion, Staff Sergeant Cavaiani recovered a machine gun, stood up, completely exposing himself to the heavy enemy fire directed at him, and began firing the machine gun in a sweeping motion along the 2 ranks of advancing enemy soldiers. Through Staff Sergeant Cavaiani's valiant efforts, with complete disregard for his safety, the majority of the remaining platoon members were able to escape. While inflicting severe losses on the advancing enemy force, Staff Sergeant Cavaiani was wounded numerous times. Staff Sergeant Cavaiani's conspicuous gallantry, extraordinary heroism, and intrepidity at the risk of his life, above and beyond the call of duty, were in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself and the United States Army. Right after that, he went and hid with, I think his name is John Smith, and I really, if I'm wrong, I apologize. But Sergeant Smith and he, Special Forces guys, they escaped. And they ended up in a bunker, and the enemy was pouring, it's not in the citation, the enemy was pouring napalm, basically, onto this bunker. So John, his mate, played dead. Well, his friend, for some reason, got up and surrendered. He was immediately killed by the North Vietnamese. John remained playing dead. They went away. He escaped into the jungle for about 2 weeks. He was captured, and he was put in a prison. Several weeks after that, he escapes, and he gets almost to the American lines when he's captured again. And they put him in a variety of North Vietnamese prison camps, most famously the Garden and, of course, the Hanoi Hilton, where he was tortured beyond reason and belief in every part of his body. And he suffered those injuries until 2 days ago. He's a tremendously giving and generous person, and he was that way throughout his entire life. President Gerald Ford presented Cavaiani with a medal during a ceremony on 12 December 1974. Cavaiani later reached the rank of Sergeant Major before retiring from the Army in 1996. When he came back, he went back to war. He was in Delta Force. He was the head of his unit in Delta Force, and he participated in one particular successful operation where a terrorist group by the name of Red Brigades or Brigate Rosa captured an American general, and Jon Cavaiani rescued the general. So that's what he continued to do when he, up to the time he left military service. So once again, I want to thank you very much. And this time we're going to raise the flag.